Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of our favorite people. I am your host, April DeMille, and today we are going to be joined by a lovely lady named Jacki Fleniken. And Jacki went from bartender to alcohol freedom coach. So I'm very excited to talk to her because I love talking about sobriety. Hey, Jacki. So
Hello.
I just introduced you by name, but if you want to go ahead and tell our audience who you are and what you're doing, and then we can kind of dive into some of this.
Okay, very good. Hi, my name's Jacki Fleniken, and I'm an alcohol transformation and freedom coach.
I love that.
Thank
Like,
you.
where were you all my life? So can you tell me a little bit about like how you got to this position? I'm sure there's a lot to unpack there, but
Right.
but you yourself had experiences with alcoholism, and that probably played a pretty big impact in this story.
Yes, it did. I mean, when I look back 3 years ago, which would have been 2023, I was a very broken soul, and
Okay.
I had at the end of December of 21, I fell into a major depression. And in order to cope with it, I just drank copious amounts of alcohol. And but I was always a daily drinker. I'd done it for years and years and years. But when I fell into depression, I mean, I literally would get up and then start drinking and spend most of the night drinking. And then by the time, I go to bed and I'd wake up, it was just this terrible hamster wheel that I was on. So 3 years ago, I just started thinking something's got to change because in 2022, I had gone to a celebration of life for a friend of mine who had passed from his addiction to alcohol. And I remember sitting there, it was like a 1 o'clock celebration of life, and we were already drinking. But I kind of needed to drink because I was hungover and I wanted to bite the hair of the dog that bit me. So here I am at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I knew if I started at one, it was all day. I knew
Right.
it was going to be all day. So we're sitting there at this celebration of life. And I'm going to say 80% of what people talked about when they got up to talk about this gentleman was all the stupid stuff he did when he was drinking. And I sat there and I thought, is this the legacy that you're creating for yourself, Jacki? Now, come on, like, is this what you really want your kids to think about when you die of, or have your friends get up and be like, oh, yeah, she could drink 12 beers. Oh, yeah, she was the life of the party. And I thought something's got to change, but I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I bought these drops I put on my tongue. Like, take this and do this, and this will help curb your desire. It didn't happen. And then I
Yeah.
had like this app I put on my phone, and it didn't work for me because it would say like log how many drinks you've had. So I would say, and I remember it was like say how many drinks you're gonna have. And I mean, I was averaging 12. So for me to go nine was like, what? Like nine,
Yeah.
a single digit. So I learned to just lie to the app because if I said I was going to drink
Yeah.
nine and I drank 12, I'd get a red mark. Well, I would just put nine. And in my mind, so I was just doing all these stupid things, right? Trying to figure out how do I get this to change. And I was a bartender for 12 years prior in my previous career. But I never really understood the addictive nature of alcohol until I finally dove in to understanding why the pattern of my addiction was so strong and why it is with so many people. It's
Right.
like I had it so hardwired into my brain. So in 2023, I was fortunate enough to find a methodology that it wasn't AA based or wasn't rehab. Because not that those aren't they work for some people. Unfortunately, it's a very minute amount. And I was
Right.
never going to go in front of a room and call myself an alcoholic because I was never going to label myself that
Yeah.
because I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go. And that's not, it just, I was not part of my comfort zone to be able to do that. And I was never going to go to rehab because at that time, I had 7 cats. So who's going to take care of my cats if I'm gone? So I was fortunate enough to find the right things and the right tools to start to learn and understand why I was drinking as heavily as I was.
Right.
And so I went on a journey to really studying this. And after about 78 days of learning, because the knowledge and the feelings and the emotion were everything, I made the decision, okay, June 9th, 2023, I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump off the alcohol train. I'm going to see what happens. But I had learned so much that I was already cutting him back. I was like, 6 beers a night, 7 beers. It
Yeah.
wasn't the 12 anymore. It wasn't double digits. So I just made this decision of it. And Matthew McConaughey, I remember I did an event with him called The Art of Living in April and May of 23.
Okay.
And one of the things that Matthew had said, which was so profound to me, was you either make a renter's decision or an owner's decision. And if you make a renter's decision, it's like you leave the back door open. It's a maybe. But if you own your decision, you own it like you own a house, you slam that window shut, you slam that back door shut. So when I
Yeah.
decided to take a break from alcohol, I said, own this decision, Jackie.
Yeah.
Own it. Because if you go back and forth, you're not going to get the results that you need. So
Right.
I went for it. And I thought, okay, let's see what happens. And I mean, it's 2.5 years later, and I have absolutely no desire to drink.
Yeah.
And so when I decided to become a coach, it was mainly because around that time that I went to that celebration of life, I did call a girlfriend of mine who had stopped drinking. And I was like, we played voicemail tag back and forth because I knew I had a problem. I just didn't know how to fix it. Because, like I said, I didn't want to go to AA and I wasn't going to go to rehab. And so whenever I decided to become a coach, is because I never wanted anybody to be that Jackie, that version of Jackie sitting on my front porch scared and somebody not, I want people to know that I'm a safe space for them to come to because I get it. I understand. I didn't learn about how to overcome, like some people who teach about addiction, but they've never been addicted to anything. I get it. I
Yes,
understand.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
get it. And so I used this same methodology in March of 2024 I'm already about what 9 months alcohol free. I used it to get rid of cigarettes too. So I got rid of both. I didn't do both at the same time because I was like, I'm not shocking my system all at
Yeah.
once, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You're
so
like,
I went
the goal is to live through this process.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So as I started to realize, because what I was focusing on and what I was so thankful is how is it really making me feel?
Hmm.
And I made videos of myself while I was drinking. I did a lot of different things to really understand why I was so, it was so hardwired into my brain, and it is for everybody. I wasn't
Yeah.
alone too. I thought those 3 a.m. wake up calls when you wake up, you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one having them. Everybody gets them. That's if they're drinking too much, and it disrupts your sleep. So, all
Yeah.
right, I think I'm done for right now.
So
What do you want to know?
when you talk about um there was a science, like a methodology that you
Mhm.
kind of discovered. Can you talk more about that, what that process looks like? Because I do have questions about,
Yeah.
like you did touch base on AA, and I was going to ask you your thoughts about that, but I also think that AA does not work for everybody, and I've done it. I've done AA, I've been to rehab,
Mhm.
I had done those things, and they did work for me for a time. It was
Mhm.
enough of the basics to set me up for success. But then I
Mhm.
took matters to my own hand and I had to figure out what was going to work for me. And it was none of those programs. They actually were harder for me. They
Mhm.
actually made it worse,
Right.
um,
Right.
because I felt like we weren't diving into the root cause, which was the pain, the trauma, the
Mhm.
stuff that was really, making me feel like I needed to put a band-aid on something, right?
Mhm.
And then when I would go to meetings, one of the things on like the one of the very first steps of, the 12 steps is admitting that there's something more powerful than you. And I had a problem with that
Mhm.
because whether
Mhm.
people think addiction, you know, a lot of people think addiction is more powerful than you, but that's not true. I know that I am an
Mhm.
all powerful being, and there is nothing more
Mhm.
powerful than me, and nothing has control of me. Right. And so that's when I started having problems. No, I'm giving my power away to this shit, and it's not real. So I had a really hard time identifying with that step. Um, and so again, I got the basics, I got what I needed from it, and it set me on my own path of self-discovery. And I've been sober from drug use. I'm just going to say I didn't have an alcohol problem. I didn't like
Mhm.
alcohol ever. So I never had a drinking problem, but I had a drug problem. But I was raised by an
Mhm.
alcoholic and a drug dealer and a drug doer. And I've been sober
Mhm.
since 2012, by my own process as well.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's why I want to know more about your process because there are, like you said, AA isn't for everybody. Rehab isn't for
Mhm.
everybody. Rehab, sometimes people have kids, cats, whatever you're talking about, dogs, what there's things, jobs, whatever that you can't just like bounce out and go do those things. I was lucky enough to have a little extra help during that time and I was able to do that, but that does again, it doesn't, it doesn't it's not a fix for everyone.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So what I was able to dive into and what really exposed me is the fact of number one, I wasn't alone. See, I thought, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I cut back alcohol? Why can't I control it? Well, the biggest thing I learned and what was so powerful to me was, well, yeah, you hardwired it. It became this automatic autopilot that happened to me. It happens with any sort of addiction. And it could anything. It could be the phone, it could be sex, it could be cigarettes, drugs, whatever it is, right? Gambling, anything like that. So what I started to understand was one thing was I was raised around parents who drink. Not a lot. My dad wasn't a big drinker early on. He was a newspaper publisher, but he always had his two drinks at night. So I was modeling the behavior of my dad. My
Yeah.
sisters were drinkers in high school. I learned that in that time of my life when my brain was forming, I was absorbing all of these different things. So of course, down the road when I started drinking, I'm just modeling what my sisters are doing.
Yeah.
So it was like take the pressure off yourself. Of course, give myself some grace and compassion to understand it's not you, it's not your fault. And the
Right.
other thing I learned, which was so powerful, was, the alcohol industry, they don't give us any warnings. They don't tell us anything about the substance. They don't really, there's no warning labels. They don't talk about short-term or long-term side effects. You kind of know the short term might be, oh, you might be hungover, you might throw up. But where's the long-term side effects listed about, I thought I had irritable bowel syndrome. I call it alcohol bowel syndrome because as soon as
Yeah.
I stopped drinking, I went from being running to the toilet to being constipated. Sorry, I'm going to be a little bit out there. I'm
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah. No,
truthful
it's
with you
real.
guys
These are real.
because there's
It's
so many
real.
things that I did not know. I didn't know. I had rosacea really bad, and it was based upon the drinking. My eyes were bloodshot. I know my liver has completely regenerated. My stomach, I used to gag all the time, I would gag. And then I found out, oh, well, that's because the way that the alcohol is in your stomach, it's ripping your stomach lining up. So all
Yeah.
of these things that they don't tell us about. Instead, because I think about, I was a bartender, like I said, for 12 years. And I remember when people would come in and they're like, oh, yeah, I don't drink. I'm like, what do you mean you don't drink?
And
Like,
why
what
are
do
you at
you
the bar?
mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
what is there? Do you have a problem? Because I didn't understand that some people just don't like the taste of it.
Yeah.
And some people just they weren't raised around it. They didn't see it.
Yeah.
So what I was able to learn was the way that it was on autopilot. So it was kind of like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. So how I explain this to people is at the time I had seven, I have six cats. So usually around 5:15, 5:30, I feed them moist food, right? So if it's 5:30, 5:35, and I haven't opened up those cans, they're already waiting at my feet
Yeah. They're
in the
probably
kitchen
screaming
saying,
at you.
where are you? Now,
Yeah.
the cat they don't have a watch. They can't read a clock. It's their internal clock. We create that same sort of internal clock when it comes to alcohol. And I'm going to use alcohol obviously as the example here because that was my choice and cigarettes too. But really, so I would use alcohol. And so usually 5 o'clock, I'd be like, oh, it wasn't even a thought. It was reaching for it. I created so many different avenues of why I thought I needed it. So that's what I was able to do in the beginning was start asking myself questions and get really curious of
Yeah.
why do you think you like to drink? And I had to write all these things down. I think I like the taste. It helps me sleep. And then and all these different things, right? And then it
Right.
was, what are your fears about not drinking? And I was like, I'm afraid I won't sleep. I'm afraid my friends will
Uh,
think I'm crazy. Is anybody going to want to hang out with me anymore?
right.
The list goes on and on and on. So what we were able to do then, based upon effective liminal psychology, is another thing I'm certified in, is start to understand all of these beliefs were stored in my subconscious mind. All
Right.
right. So the subconscious controls 90% of what we do. So I'm doing all these different things because whenever I felt, let's say, oh, I'm going to go to a party, I'm going to pregame at my house, my subconscious stored that in a little file over
Right.
here. So here it is. It's a Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out. And my subconscious says, go grab that beer first because you usually have a beer or two at home before you head to that party.
Yeah.
So effective liminal psychology is this in a nutshell. You have your conscious mind and then you have your subconscious mind. The space in between it is a liminal space.
Right.
So what we do, once we can bring those thoughts that we start to think about, like as I write that list, I was able to consciously think about each one and then start making the change in the liminal spaces, which is where the magic happens. So I started to rewire these beliefs that I had.
Yeah.
Like, is it really true
Like the
that my
stories that you were telling yourself.
stories and I was creating and all that
Yeah.
stuff? So, and then it's just it was such a, I mean, it was 2.5 years ago as I jumped off that train, but I'll never forget how handcuffed I was to alcohol.
Oh,
How much
yeah.
it takes, and I get it. Anybody who's listening who might be struggling with their addiction to alcohol, I totally understand. And you're asking
Hmm.
yourself, why can't I cut it back? Because you have this filing cabinet of information stored in your brain that we have to rewire it for you.
Yeah.
And it has to be this, we're going to break it down. And how I explain it to people is this: if you have this feel like alcohol is a big part of your life, you've just built this huge tree over here and you've got this strong foundation. What I have to do is start chopping down the limbs. I mean, the limbs are going to be the beliefs that you've created. And and that's your context of the stories that are attached to those beliefs. So we got to keep cutting those stories off, keep cutting those limbs off. And as I'm building you another tree, we're going to start watering that tree and cut the other one down. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen in a day.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like it takes time, it takes work, but
it
I'm living
does.
proof it's worth it. It's worth it.
Totally. Yeah.
Totally
Well,
worth
and
it.
I'm with you. I'm living proof that being sober is worth it too. Different drug of choice for sure. But like
Okay.
addiction's addiction. Like you said,
Yeah.
gambling, sex, it doesn't matter. The fact is, these are coping mechanisms that we have used as band-aids
Hmm.
for much bigger problems, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I'm going to ask you what's your thought process because you did say it is a process. It takes a lot of patience.
Hmm.
You have to give yourself a lot of grace. But when it comes to people being like, "Oh, I'm just going to cut it off cold turkey," and with alcohol, that can be a very blurred line and kind of dangerous. So, what would you say to somebody that has that thought?
Okay. So I have a lot of different thoughts, but let me figure out which one I want to go to first. Okay.
Okay,
So when you focus on behavior only and say, I'm just going to stop this, that's called spontaneous sobriety with whatever it might be. So it depends on how heavy of a drinker somebody is. Yeah, you have to be worried about the withdrawal symptoms. Pay
right.
attention to I would talk to your doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I would talk to your doctor if you want to just kind of cut it cold turkey. I weaned mine down. I did
Hmm.
not take anything to help with that. I simply went from 12, 13, whatever I was doing, and just watched that weaning. It worked for me, doesn't mean it'll work for you. But I would say to you is this: when you focus on behavior, then you have to instill what we call willpower. And willpower is finite. So if you're focusing and you're just saying, I'm not going to drink today, I'm not going to drink today, I'm not going to drink today, and you don't really understand why it is that you're calling for that glass of wine at 5 o'clock or that beer or that, mixed drink, and you're focusing on willpower, you make so many decisions during the day that you get home, let's say at 5 or 6 o'clock, you've had a rough day at work, you get home, you might have kids, you might have a dog, or I might have gotten home and my cat might have made a mess on the floor and I'm just so stressed and I just go because I'm saying I'm focusing on the behavior. I'm going to give in. I'm going to
Right.
go, which one do I'm done. I'm going to have a beer. It's not a big deal.
It's kind of like
So
white knuckling what that
white
means.
knuckling it. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, that's why most people, if you focus on the behavior first,
Yeah.
that's why most of them will end up going back to drinking or whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's where with the methodology that I teach and that I did, it was all about the knowledge and the emotion and the feelings. And once I learned what I've learned about what alcohol was doing to my body, how it's related now to 7 different types of cancers, just there's so much information that I give in those first 9 to 12 weeks that by the time they decide to take a break, then we do the behavior
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
I've rewired their thoughts and beliefs around why they feel that they need it. I mean, when we really think about this, when you think about it, I talked about it kind of a little bit a minute ago, you know, the alcohol industry, the only thing they say is drink responsibly. And I want all of you to
Which
think
there's
about that.
no such thing. I just have to say that.
It isn't.
There's
That's what
no
I was going
such
to
thing.
say. I want you guys to sit there and anybody who's listening, sit there and think. If you have ever had a drop of alcohol, as soon as you drink, it affects your brain.
Well,
So
it's
how
poison.
can
You're
you be
putting poison
responsible?
in your body. Yeah.
Right. But it affects your brain. You get kind of lightheaded and loopy loo. No, I know. I'd be like, trust me, I know.
Yeah.
So they think they can get away with just saying drink responsibly, and then when you look at the way that it's marketed to us,
Right.
I'd like anyone to tell me what ad they have ever seen where they show somebody throwing up after they drank, or showed somebody, I mean, unless it was Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, but we're talking about the alcohol industry here. They don't show us the true after effect of alcohol. So we're
Right.
all brainwashed into believing we need it after we play golf. We need it when we're on the beach volleyball. We
Yeah.
need it that you need this to,
It's
to
5 o'clock
fit in
somewhere, everywhere,
everywhere.
all the
Right.
time.
So it creates this false image of a substance
Yeah.
that, and really, until I finally walked away and understood it, really, what value does it bring to your life? Sure, you might have a little bit of fun in the moment, but really, if
Right.
you go too far with it, the next day you wake up asking yourself, what did I do last night? Oh my God, did I email or text anybody something stupid? Oh my God, what did I do? Like, why do I
Yeah.
have a bruise on my leg? I'd wake up sometimes, I go, where did I get that bruise? Right. So
Yeah.
when you look at the way the alcohol industry, it hides it. And I'm going to share this with your listeners too and with you. I was reading a book called The Blind Tiger, and it's about prohibition, and it's a fiction, but it is prohibition in the 1920s. And it was whenever they were making moonshine and whiskey and, out in Texas, and it was all illegal. And the sheriff's wife ended up becoming addicted to whiskey. And the one gentleman found out about the wife. Like, I can't believe that they're selling you this whiskey, knowing that your wife is using it. And he said, "Oh no." And this was a quote in the book. It said, "Oh no, he understands. He just takes perverse pleasure in her sad, sad circumstance." And I sat there and I thought, 100 years later, they take perverse pleasure in people's sad, sad circumstances of being addicted. They don't
Well,
care.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So my mission is to help people who want to break that cycle, break that hamster wheel that they're on, and they've tried other things and it doesn't work. I can promise people, give me 90 days, I will help you will cut back your drinking
Yeah.
on your terms, not white knuckling it, because it doesn't work. I've
Yeah.
seen it too many times where people have tried to just spontaneous sobriety, or they focus on the behavior, and because they didn't learn why
So,
they're
and
so
you're
addicted
you're
to it.
you're kind of covering all the bases too, because I assume, and
Mhm.
maybe this is a question as well, you're incorporating the importance of healthy habit
Mhm.
replacement
Yeah.
and changing your support group and having support group,
Right.
and I know that there is a in between phase when you're changing those
Mhm.
playgrounds that can be really, really lonely,
Right.
really, really sad. And I love that you are, like you said, you're cutting the beliefs down while you grow a whole new tree.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's really good that you're covering all those bases.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so you call yours the alcohol freedom. Is
Yep. Alcohol
the
freedom and transformation coach. I think in the beginning I said alcohol transformation, but anyway, alcohol freedom and transformation. Yes.
So
And
my question about that too, while we're
mhm.
on this, is what do you think the hardest part of early alcohol freedom is for someone that you're working with?
I think it's one of those of really breaking that habit and that routine of, okay, well, it's 4 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock. Why am I
Yeah,
thinking about this still? Because it's still, you're still not in alignment. So what happens in that situation, I tell them, subconsciously it's still running in the subconscious mind. You consciously don't want it. It's just back here, the gears are they're still turning. So
yeah,
we got to keep working on that. I want you to start questioning when you feel that urge, when you feel that craving, when you feel that, hear that voice coming in, because there's that voice loves you. That voice that says, go ahead and have a drink. It recognized that when you drank, you felt better. You got this fake dopamine hit. So
right.
you got to be, the awareness has to be there. So they learn to work with that. And I tell them, don't ever judge yourself if you do have a drink,
Yeah.
because you've been doing it for how many years?
Yeah, it's kind of
You,
inevitable for you
yeah,
to,
and if it's
yeah,
us, and I tell them, if you do, then we dive into what was triggering you, what thoughts were coming in, because then I work with them and say, okay, if that, so you had a drink, we call it data points. We don't say shame. We don't shame them at all. We don't say relapse. It's nothing like that. It's not a slip up. You collected some data. What did you learn?
Right.
And one of my clients, she
I
had
love
said,
that you do that because it is information. It's
it
like
is all you're
we're
collecting.
just collecting information
Yeah.
and how to do this different. That's it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So one of my clients had the husband had gone out of town and had a couple drinks. And we as the conversation went on, what we uncovered was she went to the liquor store because he was definitely like he didn't want her drinking and all that. And so she said it was the one thing I could control.
Yeah.
I could drive myself to get the tequila or the wine or whatever she wanted to drink. And I said, okay, great. But let me ask you a question. Were you really in control? She went, oh, no, I wasn't. I actually gave control to the tequila. I said, yes, but it's powerful because we're learning now. Then I said, okay, now I've got to work with you on how to talk to your husband, like how the two of you can communicate better so you don't feel like he's controlling you. So
Right.
that was her escape, right?
Yeah.
So that probably the biggest thing is them looking at me thinking, but how come you can do it? How come you haven't had a drink? You were able to do it and I haven't. I'm like, because comparison is the thief of joy. Stop comparing yourself to me or anybody else.
Right. Your
We are
journey is going
all
to
on
be
our own
different.
journey.
Yeah.
We're all on our own journey.
Well, the reason why comparison can be so detrimental, it can also be inspiring, right?
Hmm.
But it can be so detrimental is because people aren't thinking about all the different factors and variables
Right.
for us each as an individual,
Hmm.
so some people have more pressure, some people have less, some people are better wired to handle pressure
Hmm.
and vice versa. So
Yeah.
yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
So, what would you say your most unexpected, one of the most unexpected benefits was from being alcohol free? Like for you, and you can talk on your on your clients too, but like one of the most unexpected ones, like I would have never even saw that coming.
Oh, freedom. And this is where I could easily tear up. It's like I tell people it's not about becoming sober. It's about becoming truly free. Free to make your own choices, free to make the decision, do you want alcohol in your life or not? I kept two Michelob Ultras in my beer fridge for 18 months. And I did it so I could kind of, shoot the bird at it and I could prove myself that I'm stronger than it. But God, there's so many things that I
It's
never
kind of like
expected.
a
It,
blanket,
it,
right? Like a
it's
little,
just, yeah. I mean, the gift I gave myself, I think the biggest one was it was probably about 6 months into my journey after I stopped drinking. And I love empowering songs. I have an empowering songs playlist. I mean, every day I would listen to it because I was feeding my brain what I needed to feed my brain to get my power back. Like I love what you said earlier about higher power. It's not about a higher power outside of yourself. It's finding that higher power back within yourself that you have muddled down.
yeah,
And so I lost my sovereign self. And so I remember sitting there in my kitchen and Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston came on this on my as a suggestion on Spotify to add to my empowering songs playlist, and I started crying because I finally loved myself again because it was
yeah,
about I found the love in me again.
yeah,
And by being able to find the love in me again, I got my confidence back.
right.
So it was like I'll never forget this. It was my birthday in October of 2024, and my girlfriend was playing and her band was playing, and I had no plans. And I packed the bag, I put soda water in there, and I put an NA beer in there, and it was a 30-minute drive out to the country, and I drove to go hear her band play by myself. I knew there would be people there, but I would have never done this if I was still drinking. Two reasons. The drive was too far, and I'd be drunk by the time it was done. But I went out there with of take care of yourself because nobody else can go do it. Go have fun. Go
Go have
dance. This
fun.
is your favorite
Yeah,
band. And
yeah,
I did. And the most amazing thing happened. I met the most amazing man that night. He's the love of my life. And had I not gone and stepped out of my comfort zone and had the confidence in myself again, I wouldn't have walked into this place and met him.
right.
And it's been I mean, I'm so thankful to God and my spirit guides and guardian angels for being there for me to say, go.
Yeah,
Because think of all the things you've done. So I was able to reconnect with myself, get the confidence back in myself, and live a life that's fully just the peace I have with life now, I think was probably another one of the big surprises, because as you're not having to deal with your body metabolizing alcohol and dealing with the next day, and I mean, I never took a day off, so I mean, my body's constantly was fighting itself to metabolize the alcohol. After ridding myself of that horrible, alcohol toxin that was in my body and the poison, when things happen now, I don't get agitated. I'm just very peaceful about it. I mean, I might get elevated here and there emotionally, but
Yeah.
it's not like it was. I'd have been ranting, raving, and screaming. So peace was the other really big thing that was a huge surprise to me, that I wasn't as reactive. I didn't react. Now I just respond. I have time to think about it and reflect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you touch base on something that stood out to me too. Like, I think one of the most unexpected benefits I can say for me personally was I
Mhm.
never imagined um, that there was a life outside of
Mhm.
addiction. Like you hear of it and you think, oh, that's cool, that's good for them. But it was like a fantasy to me because it's not how I was raised. And
Mhm.
so that was one of the things that I was like, this is something you read about in stories. People aren't actually sober. No, I don't know a single person on the planet that was like that until I became that person. But then even with that, like one of the most unexpected other benefits was all the beautiful connections that are made outside of that. I never thought in a million years I'd be here where I am right now with all the other amazing sober people in my
Mhm.
life. And I still
Mhm.
have people that aren't always sober, but that doesn't mean they're not wonderful people. Like it doesn't like it changed so much
Mhm.
about my daily life and the long term and my health and everything. And there's just, I guess there's such a big list of unexpected benefits, but
Mhm.
the types of connections I made, that one really stood out to me.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. And I like to tell people it's not about what you're losing, it's about what you're going to gain.
Oh,
You don't
totally.
even realize what you're going to gain until
Yeah.
you experience it. And I think one of the things I've learned too, April, is, I hung out with a lot of a lot of the people I used to hang out with. I mean, they were customers of when I was a bartender.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we drank a lot together, and I maybe some of the people I hung out with them a little bit more than I probably would have. I mean, I don't really hang out with them as much anymore because maybe I needed the beer to be able to tolerate them, but they're
Well,
also drinking
yeah.
heavily. So it's like they're not their true authentic self. And that's what I've been able to love, is
Right.
right, just to have in-depth conversations where there's nothing it's just us. It's just me and you right now, right? It's
Yeah.
nothing's coming into our brain that's making us be all woo woo or this or
Right.
that or drunk or whatever it might be. It's like we get to be authentically ourselves, and I love it.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why I even struggle with like, so like my boyfriend and I, like we recently went to his company party for Christmas, and I was like, ugh, such a bummer. Like it was fun to be with him,
Mhm.
but like, in Texas, everybody drinks everywhere, and
Mhm.
it's really disappointing. And so it's like every occasion there's alcohol all over the place. And for me, I really struggle to be in those environments because I have nothing in common with anybody there.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, this is just not my vibe. So for me, I'm like boring, get me out of here.
Right.
Like I'm like,
Exactly.
this is boring. I can handle about 30 minutes and I'm done.
Right. And that's the cool thing. We can just check out and go, hey, we
Yeah.
made our appearance. It was fun for a little while. All right, let's
Yeah.
go, honey.
Said our
All right.
hellos. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Let's go do
exactly.
what we want to do and not watch all these people get drunk.
Yeah, I don't love that. But, and part of it is because I'm such a healer and an empath anyway, and I don't like seeing the
Mhm.
suffering because I know
Right.
what's coming with it, you know? And so that's the part where I have to go, this is their journey, and I have to
Mhm.
just know that mine looks different and be at
Mhm.
peace with that. Um,
Yeah.
you also did touch base on your history of bartending. I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about that for a minute because I also bartended.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I also was a bartender at a point in my life. What was funny about that was I was a sober bartender. So here's what's interesting. It was right before I went to rehab. But well, when was this actually? Trying to remember when this was. It was a while ago. Um, So I'm trying to remember what year it was, but I remember I bartended for like, I don't know, it was like a few months. Um, and there were two locations that I bartended at. And the funny thing was, is I was a sober bartender, and it was easier for me to bartend because um, I worked nights when my kids could be at home, caring for themselves. They were a little bit older, all the things. So that was kind of one of the things I did at that time. And I remember specifically, I had the boss of the bar, like the owner of the bar, he
Mhm.
had like a love-hate relationship for me. And I'm going to tell you why. One, he kind of loved that I was sober because like my tills were always on point.
Mhm.
There was never any problems, whatever. And the other bartenders didn't have that. They were either
Mhm.
stealing or too drunk to count, or there was something always
Mhm.
amiss, right? So he did love that. But one thing that he hated about me and that he would always get on to me about was how I was making him lose money. And it was because when you're a bartender, you get paid literally everybody wants to be your best friend.
Mhm.
Everybody there wants to tell you their life story. They want to be your best friend. They want to buy you drinks. They want to get you loaded with them. They want to
Mhm.
hang out. That's what they're there to do, right? Well, I was sober, so I wasn't taking anybody's, hey, let me buy you a drink. I was like, oh, no, I'm good. Thank you. And I'd walk away. And he would get so
Mhm.
fucking mad at me because why aren't you taking their money? I'm losing business because of you. And I was like, what? I don't understand. And he's like, they're buying you drinks, they're giving you money. I don't care if you just put water in a cup, take their money, but let them buy you drinks. You're making me lose money. And it was a thing. And I was like, I would have never that's not something I would have experienced it
Right.
never crossed my mind that oh, I'm losing money for this man because I'm not letting people buy me drinks. And it was a whole thing. And I ended up just not being okay with it. I was
Right.
like, I don't feel right about it. It felt really dishonest to me. And so
Mhm.
I was like, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. It was just a weird experience. I kind of was like, oh, it'll be cool. I'll be the only sober bartender there. But then it ended up not being cool because the guy was pissed that I wasn't letting people, that I was denying money. So yeah,
Wow.
it was a weird
That's a
thing.
little, in my humble opinion, he's a little bit unethical. Here, take their money, but don't even buy yourself that.
Yeah, it was like
And
if
did he
you,
want you to charge them for the most expensive drink as well? Like
I
an
don't,
espresso martini for
usually,
10 bucks?
yeah, that's the thing is usually people would be like, what's your drink? What's your favorite drink? I want to
Right.
buy you that. And I'd be like, I don't drink, so don't worry about it, right? And he'd be like,
Right.
I don't care if you pour Coca-Cola into a shot glass and whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not good with that. Like, no
No.
thanks. But
Yeah.
that's also kind of like par for the course because it's such an
Mhm.
addictive environment that it ends up being deceitful too. So
Right.
it goes
100%.
hand in hand.
Right. Wow. I
Hmm.
can't, what an interest. Yeah. I never had that experience with any of my bosses. And I would have, the same thing. I'd have been like, what? Just
Yeah.
charge them for, so they just want to, and so he's not even selling anything. He's just taking their money.
He just
Yeah.
was like, they're fine with giving you the money, so that means fucking take it. So I was apparently bad for business, bad for numbers. So I was like, whatever.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So it was
Crazy.
yeah, it was a weird
Yeah.
experience for sure.
Yeah.
So can I ask you what you're doing with yourself now that you're not bartending, you're not in that
Mm-mm.
world. You've got a different
Mm-mm.
career. I know you're coaching. Is there any other magical things you have going on?
Just working really hard to get my name out there more and more I mean, most of my coaching is done via Zoom, so it doesn't matter where people are anywhere in the
Yeah.
world, but I mean,
Yeah.
mostly United States. I had a girl up in Canada, but just really getting my message out there to people because I know, like I said, there's so many people who are suffering in silence behind a mask, struggling with this and not knowing where to go. Most people are not going to go to their doctor and tell them how much they're drinking because they're so afraid their doctor's going to judge them or they're going to write it down in their medical information, and all that. And so it's like I just keep trying to get out there to tell my story so people know there's people that are just like me right now sitting at home wanting to be able to cut back and they can't. because one of the things when I started on this journey too, it was like I wanted to just get control back. I never went with this with the intention of never drinking again. I mean, I can drink if I want to. I just literally have no desire. But when I started on this journey, it was just to be able to go back to having one or two. So I remember thinking, oh, I'll never go a day without a beer, right? That was my whole mindset.
Yeah.
But after everything I've done and everything I've learned, it's even to, I mean, to even think about having a beer is inconceivable.
Yeah.
Like last night, it was really fun. My boyfriend's three boys were here with their two of them are married with babies. My two of my kids were here. We had a great dinner, and I made great I made non-alcoholic margaritas. I used agave, a non-alcoholic agave from Ritual. I took a blueberry lavender syrup that I found that I made little martinis for them, everything non-alcoholic, So I just love my life now that I can take the knowledge I learned from being a bartender and, find a different way of having life. So those are the things I'm
You could
doing.
totally make a whole business doing just
Yeah.
like fun, now non-alcoholic little
Mhm.
drinks.
Yeah, it's teaching them too, and that's the biggest thing. Like what I do love, I do drink non-alcoholic beer. I did from day one.
Yeah.
When I had my first day on June 9th, 2023, I substituted Michelob Ultra with Heineken Zero
Yeah.
because I knew it was the habit, it was the routine. So I
Right.
kept the routine the same. I just changed what was coming out of that bottle because
Right.
the brain didn't know. The
Right.
brain didn't know that the Michelob Ultra was addictive and nor did it know it was poisonous. It just knew I liked the way it made me feel. So the first day I had seven Heineken Zeros. I mean, I just kept drinking them because I was like, and then eventually I remember like probably about 2 months in, I was like, every time you drink one of these NA beers, it's costing you like $1 or something like that. So I was like, now I was good. I was free from it. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll have it. I'll have one on occasion or maybe one split one with my boyfriend or something. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's so cool though. I love that. I feel like I had something else to ask you. Um, well, while we're on the subject of the habits,
Hmm.
it some of this reprogramming reminds me a lot of hypnotherapy too.
Hmm.
So I think that's pretty neat. I
Hmm.
think that hypnotherapy does a lot of, reprogramming of language and things like that, and rewiring,
Hmm.
the brain, the pathways for, habits like smoking and things.
Right.
So I think that's really, really good stuff. Um, I also think it's interesting because I think that you're one of the only alcohol-free people I've met that still drinks like non-alcohol stuff. And I think that's interesting because I remember when I was in rehab, I
Hmm.
had a sponsor and her choice of drug was alcohol also. So we were different in that way, but she was still a fun lady. And I asked her one day, I said, "So what's the difference? Like, what if I still go get a non-alcoholic beer?" I had actually asked her that. And she said, "The intention. It's still the intention. You're still like sticking with the habit." And I was like, okay. So like it made sense to me at the time, but I'm hearing a different perspective from you and it still works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, eventually I didn't need the
And you
seven
didn't need it.
in it.
Yeah.
No, it just, and then I remember it was a 2023, 24, in 2025. I guess it was this past summer. Every time I used to mow my yard, I'd come in and have a beer because it's like
Yeah.
you're all sweaty and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And this summer, I mowed my yard. I came inside. The next day, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even get an NA beer. Like, so I mean, first 2 years I did. And this year I didn't even think about it. I was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And I was told that this is what will happen over time.
Yeah.
So it's just because alcohol has become so small and irrelevant in my life. I mean, I talk about it, you know what I mean? I coach people around it, but me personally, it means it's nothing to me anymore. It doesn't take up any real estate in my brain anymore. It's
Yeah.
100. What I mean by that, okay, here's another interesting thing that happened, April. My boyfriend and I went to Charleston, a couple months ago. I think it was August, and we went to a swanky restaurant with his best friend and his best friend's wife, and we ordered what we thought was a non-alcoholic beer because they had these beers listed at the top. There's five beers listed, and underneath it were all the mocktails. So we were like, oh, That's about normal. I mean, a lot of restaurants have about three or four, maybe five different options for NA beers, and we ordered one, and
Right.
it was pretty amazing that within literally, they brought it out. They didn't bring the bottle. They had it in a glass for Rick, and I took a sip of it, and within 90 seconds, I looked at him and I said, "Something's not right.
You're
I need
like,
to see."
that has alcohol in it.
I said, "I need to see the bottle." I didn't. I said, "Something's not right." And what I, what we did discover, yes, it did have alcohol in it. And what I felt was, because I had rewired my brain and I got rid of that complete tree, the tree that was growing that had all
Yeah.
that information, had the data about alcohol, when because I've done so much work on myself and rewired that belief and or everything about alcohol, that my subconscious mind went like this alarm went off and said, no, 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 that's that thing you got rid of. That's that thing you got rid of. And sure enough, so I had kudos to Rick and I. We spoke with the maitre d, the general manager of that restaurant, and they didn't list their ABVs on the beers. And I
Okay.
said, we were under the premise and the understanding that that was your non-alcoholic page. And they added an NA beer onto their beer list after what happened to me. So kudos, we got it. At least I got this
Yeah.
restaurant to understand you can't, number one, don't mix,
Yeah,
don't
don't
put your
do that.
mocktails underneath it and then beer above it. But at least now they have an NA beer. So I can at least, Charleston, people in Charleston, if you're listening, you go to this fancy restaurant and see it. I was the one that
You're
realized that they weren't
welcome,
putting.
Charleston.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's actually good. But you're right. Like you'd done so much work that your body was like, hey, alert, something's
Alert.
fucking amiss here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My boyfriend goes, well, why didn't I taste it? Why didn't I realize there was alcohol in it? And I said, well, honey, because you were not a professional drinker like I was. You didn't
Oh,
do all this work that he drank one beer a week. He took him 3 months to drink what I drank in a day. Right. So,
yeah.
I mean, I said, of course you didn't. Your brain, you didn't have to detox your body the way I did,
Right. Yeah.
as you know
I,
what that's like.
yeah, and I do because like I will say that um I being sober as long as I have, I think the first little hump to get through is, rewiring, habit changes, friend changes,
Mhm.
environment changes, all those things. And then with that, like you said, comes boundaries and confidence and empowerment, all these things.
Right.
It just naturally falls in line with the process.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm also in a place where I can't even imagine annihilating my body like that now. It's never a thought in my mind. It goes from I'm actively trying to be sober to, oh, now this is just my lifestyle.
Right.
I'm so sober that I'm not sober,
Right.
right? So it's
Mhm.
like if that even makes sense at all. Like, yeah. So
I get it.
it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
100%.
Now it's just like not like you said, it's just my nature and my
Mhm.
lifestyle. So it's never even a thought.
Yeah.
That is
I
definitely freedom.
Yeah, it's freedom. It's freedom to
Yeah.
choose. It's freedom to do what you want. And it's, and I look at people, I know you said something earlier about, you go to these events and all these other people are drinking and the empaths in us and stuff like that we know what I know what it's going to look like tomorrow when they wake up. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing, a lot of people just don't know yet. They don't understand what the
Yeah.
impact it's having on them. And I think the other thing that really I want people to know you don't have to call yourself an alcoholic. And I do think that that has deterred people from seeking help because
Well,
they don't
that's
want to have to.
sorry, that's actually a good point because I remember going to some AA meetings, AA, NA, I don't even know. Like there was meetings, right? And the one
Mhm.
closest to me was more of a small town AA meeting, and they were a little more open to me just because it was a smaller town. But I was never an alcoholic. I never
Mhm.
had that. I was a drug
Right.
addict, but
Mhm.
alcohol, I didn't give a fuck about alcohol. It was not something
Right.
that even was a thought in my mind. Um, so a lot of times they would require me to introduce myself as an alcoholic in those meetings, even though I wasn't at all. That's kind of how they organize their meetings sometimes. And I still thought, I mean, whatever. But those were some of the things that I didn't align with in that organization. And even going to the meetings, I will say they did help in the beginning. Just trying to understand the step work and the importance of some of that and community. I could understand having, the sponsor, all those things, right? That's great. Um, but you do expand way beyond that. And some of us do it really fast.
Hmm.
And so it only worked for me for like a month or two. And I was already like, nope, this isn't working because I would go to the meetings. And again, I think just my psychic medium, like empathy, just that part that I absorb, other people's sufferings and things because that's
Hmm.
information in my body. So I understand what they're going through. That's how it works for me. Right. So I would walk into a meeting and I could see what people were doing even before the meeting. I could see their pain the night before. I could see their suffering. And that alone overloaded me so much that I was like, I can't go to these meetings. Not
Right.
because I didn't feel like I would get community or anything else out of it. It was because I couldn't get past, I was so sensitive in my own healing process
Hmm.
that I couldn't get past that part. And I didn't have enough regulation to have the right boundaries and framework in place to know where I stopped and where they began in my own psychic medium, like evolution. Right.
Right.
So in that
Right.
place, I was so like, uh, overwhelmed
Hmm.
by all the data I was getting and absorbing that it actually triggered me
Hmm.
to stay fucked up. I was like, now I want to go get fucked up because this actually upset me more. So
Right.
that's why I
Right.
say it really isn't the thing for everybody because
Hmm.
that I was so sensitive to that piece of it that made it harder for me to stay sober. I mean, I
Right.
did, but like that was what was triggering more than anything else I was doing.
Right.
And so I had decided very early in my process to not never go to meetings again, and I didn't. I never did
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And you're a success. You found
Right.
your way, right? And
Yeah.
that is, I mean, I do hear you 10% is about what they say that is successful with AA. And for those of people who've done it, that's great. But
Right.
I want people to know that there is another way that's not, you don't
Yeah.
have to label yourself because I do feel like labels are not, they're not empowering. They're
No,
not
they can be
empowering
very
at all.
disempowering.
And
Yeah.
it's also, there's no shame. I mean, if you have, if like we talked about, if you do by chance have something to drink after 6 months of maybe not drinking, there's no shame. I don't shame you. Unfortunately, from what I hear, if you're in that program, they say, well, you're back to day one. No, we don't do that. We
Right.
say you're still, I'll change it to, okay, let's look at the percentage you are now. You're still 99.5%
Yeah.
since you made that decision to have your first day, your day one. Like you only have one day one with me. That's it.
Right.
From there on out, if you decide to have a drink or by chance it just happens, now we might look at it as a percentage. I'm not taking you back to day one because most
There's
people
no
that if they have,
right. You've
right,
already
you got to go
evolved
back.
so much past day one anyway, even if you do have
Yeah,
that drink or you
right.
do have that moment where you go, well, this is a choice I'm making today. Again, it's just information.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I remember before I got sober, I think there was at least a year or two before that I had tried to get sober before, and I did. I had months of sobriety at a time, and then I would have a massive fight with my very abusive husband back then,
Mhm.
and that would trigger me, and then I would do drugs just to reconnect with him and all the things. Not saying that that I'm not accountable for my triggers, but like I didn't know how to
Right.
handle those triggers at the time. That was my coping, and so it would be something like that, and I would fall back into it. But after a while, you eventually you just you don't have to ever go back.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful process.
It is, and like we said, it's not a flip of a switch. If it was,
Mm.
it's just not. You have to plant the seeds and you have to just keep watering them. And I tell people, even if it's just a millimeter shift every day, just one tiny millimeter shift. So I start on this journey in 2023. I'm like it's over 1,000 millimeter shifts I've made.
Yeah.
So they stack up. They
Yeah.
stack up.
Yeah.
Have I had some bad days? Yeah, I've had some days that have taken me to my knees, but I didn't run back to alcohol. I'm
Yeah.
able to work through those emotions now and sit with myself, and that's a different
That's a
world, isn't it,
big
April?
deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
like,
a really big
whoa,
deal. Yeah.
right? But it's,
Yeah. When
but
you don't have to hide from yourself or doctor it
mm-mm,
up or
no,
mask it and you can just sit with the ugly stuff, the uncomfortable stuff that's really not ugly. It's actually pretty beautiful, you know?
right. Because it goes away quicker too. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that?
Oh,
Like when
yeah.
you, I used to have situations and I would drink through it, right? And 3 weeks later, I'm still dealing with it because I never
Yep.
dealt with it.
Yeah,
And
because you're not
yeah.
actually like minimizing the issue, you're prolonging the issue.
Exactly. It's still going to be there the next day if you don't deal with it. If you just go decide to get high or do some drugs or
Yeah.
drink alcohol, it's not going to go away until you sit there and work with it and figure out what do you need to do or whatever. So yeah, it's a beautiful alcohol free, drug free, whatever. It's beautiful. It's beautiful life.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your time with me today. I really appreciate that. Can you tell me, I mean, it's going to be in the notes anyway, but can you tell the audience like the fastest way to get a hold of you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, my name, coaching by Jacki, JACKI.com. And you go in there and I have my stories are in there. And it goes into all the details. And then I have a link that just says book a free call with me. So I talk
Awesome.
to everybody for free. And just to hear where their story is, and see if we're a good fit. Uh, because I know you got to make sure you like the person that you're talking to. And
Yeah,
I've got a lot of compassion for people who are struggling,
yeah,
and I I want to be able to be of service to others who are scared and afraid to talk about it. So that's the biggest way is go to coachingbyjacki.com.
perfect. Perfect. Well,
Thank
thank you so much, Jackie. I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. So if you want to just help me tell my audience goodbye. Bye, you
All right, goodbye.
guys. See y'all
Bye.
next
Thank
time.
you.